Weather climate report for Monday, May 27, 2019, approximately 3:37 p.m. Central Standard Time. We have significant weather and climate change alerts throughout the United States. Let's take a look. Zoom out here and give a broad view. Over here on the west coast by California, we have wind advisories. It's been significant recently. A week ago they had warnings of up to 100-mile-an-hour winds. I don't think it got that high, but basically up and down the mountains right in this area into Placitas, my friend in Placitas. They had significant wind advisories, and now today it looks like they have a small craft advisory up and down the entire coast. So winds are increasing across the country. We're having more and more wind advisories. Reno, we've got a lake wind advisory. Do they have lakes in Nevada? And even here in Elko, we've got a flood advisory. How do they get that much water? I have no idea. Battle Mountain, river flood warning until tomorrow. Elko, Nevada. Let's take a little closer look at that and see what they have to say. Basically, what they're saying here for Elko is rain will continue. Expect occasional rain to continue for the next several hours. 0.18 inch. I don't know how that constitutes river flooding, but I didn't even know they had rivers there. I guess that's why we're too far away. Let's try Winnemucca and see what we can find. All right, now we're closer to the target region here. River flooding. Flood warning continues for the Humboldt River at Comus until further notice. 10:15 Monday, the stage was 9.7 feet. Flood stage is 9.5 feet. Minor flooding. So it looks like that's the deal. All right, let's look around. Let's see what else we have here. Boise, near Boise. Kind of a no man's land there. Severe thunderstorm warning expires soon. Ketchum and Haley. They have river flood advisory. Up here further north of Montana, we've got flood warnings until tomorrow. I'm assuming that's snow melting from the mountains and draining down. Flood watches in Billings. Gillette, Wyoming. Rapid City, South Dakota. Floods. We're going to get down here. Denver and Cheyenne, we've got tornadoes. Alright, zoom back out. Down here in New Mexico and Arizona, we've got high wind warnings. Red flag warnings, don't start fires because the conditions are right with the wind and the humidity for that to blow up. Middle America, we've got Hastings, Nebraska, more flooding. Wichita, Kansas, flood warning. Now these little snaky areas here, these green long line areas. Let me see if we can highlight those here. So basically you've got, these kinds of, all these little green kind of long snaky things they look like rivers, and that's because it's river flooding from basically Minneapolis and over here in Wisconsin, middle Wisconsin, and South Dakota, all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. There's been river flooding for about 2 months. So if you look at the Navy flood maps, which I'll show you here in 1 second. You can see in this predictive map said to be leaked from the Navy. Basically, you got the coasts underwater. This is obviously assuming this is sea level rise. You've got, here's Gulf of Mexico down here, at the bottom of the screen. This is showing basically up to, let's see, Louisiana's gone, Florida's gone, East Coast is gone, and then up the middle of the country where the Mississippi is, in through Wisconsin. Why would Wisconsin be gone? Well, because of the Great Lakes. Most of Minnesota. Did they get Chicago? Well, I can't tell. Let's check a different map. Okay, here's maybe the same map, maybe a little different. Iowa. Basically, the central corridor there is basically a lake, ocean, splitting the country in half. Could it happen? I don't know. Anything can happen, but something to be aware of. There's other maps that show a little different. Maybe not all of Wisconsin gone, but basically my point is, if we get back to our real-time map of what's flooding right now and what has been flooding for 2 months, I mean, spring floods are over. You know, it's June now. This is summertime. So basically this middle area here where you have all this green, these green snakes, looks a lot like what those leaked Navy maps are warning about. You take this area right here between Minnesota and Wisconsin, right here, and take these rivers that are flooding. Now, if you think about sea level rise and just the waters inside the earth coming out more, you could probably imagine that, you know, this could swell to maybe this area. These rivers here could swell. These two could join together. Basically, this part would be closed off. You can start to imagine, you know, you get this. You can have something basically like that map where the country's cut in half. There's a lot more water. The rivers are overflowing. Some people have said wherever there's a river now, extend that by 100 miles, you know, on each side, and that's going to be water, considering solar activity and magnetic pole shift. Over here, these rivers in between Minnesota border and South Dakota border, at one point the Weather Service warning basically 30 miles on each side of that river was going to be in danger of flooding. So if you take a look at that, you know, logically you've got, was this river coming down here, and you think 30 miles on each side, well, that's here and here. Okay, so we're talking about huge chunks of land being turned into water. And, you know, if it's permanent, then it's now a lake or an ocean. Have you seen permanent changes? I have. In the Midwest, I've seen soil erosion replaced by sand, and it's permanent. I mean, it's not something that's changing. I've seen new lakes form in this area right over here. Basically, right around, let me draw it for you. Wisconsin, right in this area, somewhere in this area, there's a new lake there along a highway that wasn't there a year ago, and it just hasn't gone away. It's just not going away. And if you can hear the rain in the background here, basically we get in Wisconsin area, they've been getting about 3 days of rain and then 1 day of sunshine. So going down here to Chicago, this is all this red area. This is all tornado warnings for today. Expired or tornado watches, river flood warning, and tornadoes. So they're watching for tornadoes. They're warning about river flooding. In the middle here, Iowa, they've been flooding for a month and a half. This purple area down here, lake wind advisories, looks like high winds. That's Missouri, Kentucky. Atlanta, they've been having heat advisories. So they're a little different than the rest of the country. And more wind advisories over here on the East Coast. Small craft warnings. So that's about the state of it today in the United States. Let's check local storm reports, see what people are saying. Sometimes these are a couple days old, but we'll see what we can find here if anything pops up. And it doesn't look like we're gonna get anything. So let's go to the next thing on our watch list. Let's look at our earthquakes. We have our typical areas over here: San Francisco, north of San Francisco. In the mountains here, we're known up by Caribou, Nevada side. There's usually some earthquakes in here almost every day. This is a 1.4. This is a 1.1. Mammoth Lakes 1.4. Nothing too big. Nevada Test Range, they're blowing up bombs out there. 2.2. So basically we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 epicenters, they call them. Anything else? Looks pretty clear. Alright, let's check our next thing on our list. How are the roads? Let's take a look at temperature. You can see down there in Atlanta, they're having 98s, 94s. That's warmer than average. Everywhere else in the United States seems to be much cooler than average. New Mexico down there, 92. So, back to the geography change in the United States and those Navy maps. Now this is a USGS map of current flood stages, you can see it's just like that Navy map showed. Middle America, they're basically hundreds, thousands of little floods happening. So what if the water levels rise just, a few inches? Would this whole entire area be underwater? What about trying to drive through there? How many detours? What about when it gets to the point where bridges and roads are impassable and our just-in-time inventory system that hauls and keeps our food going to the grocery stores, those trucks aren't able to get there? And what about all the areas that are unable to plant this spring because of wet and cold soil temperatures? So if you compare that map where all the flooding is happening with where all the corn is produced, you can see basically, we're looking at the same areas here. Illinois, 15% of the corn, Iowa 17%, Nebraska 12%, Minnesota 10%. It's basically that same area where we're looking at all the water. Farmers aren't able to plant. They made some kind of crazy law in the Midwest that fuel has to be made with corn, with ethanol. So no corn for the ethanol production, or reduced corn. We're looking at gas prices that could skyrocket and make driving improbable for many people. So things to think about, things to prepare for. Make sure you have clean water and food, and hopefully I can do some better forecasting or reporting in the future.